Hello everybody and welcome. Today we are doing my manga reading log. I decided to add my face to it because I want to be more personable, but like the real reason is that I don't have the manga with me to even show. So you'd be looking at nothing if I didn't show my face. So hello. So yes, like I said, this is my May-ish reading log. I will start by talking about the series that I completed, series that I'm like currently reading, and then also like series that I really want to pick up. So yeah, let's get into it with the first series on the list, which is something that I've talked about in a couple reading logs, but I finally completed it, and that is Chibi Vampire. Like I said, I did start collecting the series towards the beginning of like adding manga content, so you guys have slowly watched me grow the collection of physicals, and then I recently took the plunge and decided to just binge the whole thing. I was like around volume 4, and then I read all of the rest of it to volume 14. So I'll give you guys a short synopsis if you don't know what Chibi Vampire is about. So basically we follow our protagonist named Kari. She is a vampire and she comes from a family of vampires. However, she's a bit different because instead of like taking blood from people, she actually produces too much blood, so she like gives blood to people, and if she doesn't give the blood to somebody, then she has like really explosive nosebleeds to excrete the excess of blood she has. And like this is how she's been living her life. She also goes to school and stuff like regular humans. She's not affected by the sun or affected by anything that regular vampires are typically affected by. So she lives a pretty normal life, and she's been managing her blood problem until a new student transfers to her school. His name's Usui, and he like makes her blood increase for whatever reason. Turns out it's love. And so the story's about like their blossoming romance, and also like towards the second half of the series they start exploring like why she specifically is this way as a vampire, and like they kind of start touching on the vampire like world building. And yeah, so that's basically the synopsis. I will say that I was genuinely impressed by the series. Like I picked it up, like I read the first volume because I already had it and I was trying to decide whether I wanted to sell it or keep it, and I was like, no, this is cool, like I'll buy more. And I bought more, and then like on my binge I was like, wow, like this is genuinely a great series, like actually underrated. And it's not the nostalgia talking, like I'm genuinely impressed. One thing I really enjoyed about the series is seeing the character dynamics. So like Karen has an older brother and a younger sister, and I love seeing how them as well as her parents like genuinely do care about her, despite, you know, them picking on her, like making fun of her for not being a real vampire and stuff like that. You still can tell that they genuinely do love their daughter slash sibling, and I love a good family bond. On the same note, I would say my favorite characters are like Anju and Ren, which are her siblings. I also really like her, Karin, and her man's Usui. I like all the characters a lot. So I will say that the art reminds me of like old school vampires. I don't know. The art is exactly what I expect from like a like cheesy vampire thing. So I really enjoy the art. I feel like it's pretty unique and it makes a lot of sense for the series. I honestly like don't have that many criticisms for the series, other than the fact that it wasn't like over the top super impressive. It was just like really good, like a very solid series. I think I rated it like an 8 or a 9. Just solid. I can't, like, there's nothing to critique. I feel like it just has a lot going for it. Like there's really good emotional moments with her and her family, and like her relationship with being a vampire. They introduce an extra character towards the second half of the series that adds more dimension to this, like the vampire world building, and I really enjoyed her character. And there's some good comedy moments, and I think that the storyline with her as a vampire is a really interesting twist on like the tired vampire trope. And I think that it might be one of the best like shoujo vampire series out there, the competition is not tough. It's Vampire Night, so like I guess that's not a big feat to have, but I thoroughly recommend it if you want to read a more kind of lighthearted romance with supernatural elements. I feel like this is the one for you. I might actually say that it is one of my top romances. I've been really into romance and I've gotten really hypercritical of it, and I think that their development is one of my favorites, actually. Because they got together, there was a certain amount of burn like to it, but they did get together at a point where you could still see them like date and like be together and have like a relationship, and that's what I really enjoy. And then I also don't really like pure romance. I like having other elements to it, so the vampire element, like her family stuff, really tied it all together. So you know what, I think Chibi Vampire may be one of my favorite romances, and definitely my favorite vampire thing, because if you have any vampire recommendations, I'll take them, because the only things I know are Twilight and Vampire Night, and they're both bad, so I don't know. Yeah, so that is my talk about Chibi Vampire. I totally recommend you guys to check it out because it's good and it deserves more hype. I hope they give it a reboot. I want everything to get a reboot these days. One thing I forgot to mention is that the anime is actually really different from the manga. I don't remember if I mentioned it, but I originally watched the anime when I was a kid, and then I like decided to collect the manga, and then boom, here we are. But as I was reading, I was like, I don't remember this happening like this. I don't remember this character. But so then I googled like the storyline of the anime, and I realized that they are very different. They actually don't introduce the character I mentioned that adds to the world building of vampires. They don't introduce her at all. She's not a character. They introduce an anime only character, and then the ending is quite different. So I will say that I think the manga is better. I mean, it's the source material. It's like the way the author intended the story to progress and end. So I think the manga is good, and I don't think the anime is worth checking out. It's kind of like more ecchi, or like it has a lot of like nude scenes. Like the intro of the anime is very like nude, which the series isn't like that, but I just feel like the manga's the way to go. I think it's the better story between the two. I also know the light novels I think are a different story as well. I never read them, and I don't think I care to read them, but I just think it was nice to note in case y'all lazy people who just read, who watch the show equivalent of manga recommendations, because I know I do that. Don't do it for this one. Okay, the second series that we're discussing today is actually not complete, so I don't know why I put it second on the list of things to talk about in the completed section of the video, but it's Tokyo Revengers. And the funny part is that I'm not even done, like I'm not even caught up. I stopped reading right before the current arc. Like the current arc is in 2 halves. I stopped reading after the first half, right before they were going into the final fight, because I feel like I'm gonna just binge it when it ends, or like binge it when the fight ends or something. The chapters are too short for me to warrant waiting every week for 3 pages of drawings. So anyways, I feel like I need to explain myself before I talk about the series, because 1, I feel like it's not something I'm typically interested in, and 2, y'all need to understand that I've developed, me and Tokyo Revengers are like this, okay? I don't care about y'all criticisms about the series. Me and Tokyo Revengers were besties, okay? So basically, there I was one day. I was styling my hair, because y'all know it takes a couple hours, okay? The whole hair process takes a couple hours. I was there, I was watching Jujutsu Kaisen, and I was like, okay, there's 2 episodes left. I was on episode like 24 or 23. I thought there was 26 episodes, but there's actually 24, and I was like, okay, I have 2 episodes left. I'm gonna watch them while I finish my hair, and then whatever. But as I was midway doing my hair, I was on episode 24 and it ended, and then I realized there was nothing left, and I needed to pick something else up because I can't sit in silence while I do my hair. I need to have some sort of like media being consumed while I do my hair. It's a waste of time otherwise. So then I'm scrolling through Crunchyroll and I see Tokyo Revengers and I'm like, okay, the premise sounds interesting enough for me to like get my hair done. So, boom. I watched the first episode. I'm like, damn, I want to watch another. And there I was, watching the whole series. And there I was, reading the manga after the series ended. So I read from chapter like 70 something up until 242. And it was a very quick binge. I was very attached. Like this. I'm in there, okay? Tokyo Revengers. Me and them like this. The general synopsis, in case nobody knows what it is, basically we have our main protagonist. His name's Takemichi, and he is a loser. He's literally just a loser. He's like 26 years old. The highlight of his life was when he was in middle school and he was a delinquent and he had a girlfriend. And like life was so good back then, you feel me? 13 years old. That's the time to be alive. But after that, like his life just went downhill. He lives in this apartment, dirty ass apartment. His life's not that great, and he's chilling and he sees on TV that his middle school girlfriend and her little brother were both killed by a gang, like by gang violence. So he's like, damn, that's really sad. And whatever, he's moping around and he ends up getting pushed into the train tracks, and in the like fear of death, he ends up time traveling back to exactly 12 years into the past when he was still in middle school. 12, 20, I guess he's 14. Doesn't matter. He goes 12 years into the past and he's back in middle school, back in his delinquent era, and he sets off on a mission basically to save his middle school girlfriend because he has the power to do so. So he needs to use it to his advantage. And he also gains the help of the little brother. The little brother is the catalyst of his time traveling, so yeah, that is the story. And it gets really convoluted because he keeps trying and things don't always work out. That's how we ended up on chapter 250 something, okay? It doesn't work the first time around. I will save my entire thoughts on this series for a separate video because like I said, I'm really attached to it and I really care about the characters and I really care about the storyline, and I think that I would be better off talking about it in a separate thing, especially after it ends, because I do have a lot of hope in this recent arc that it will turn itself around, because I know a lot of people hate it. One, I think the hate is a bit unwarranted. I think the only reason people are so mad is because they're waiting for it weekly instead of binging it. If they were binging it, I don't think it would be as like a topic of discussion. And two, I think there are some things that are still not answered, and I think they will be answered. I have hope in the author that he will answer some of the questions. I don't have hope that he'll answer everything, but I think that things will be wrapped up in a way that makes enough sense for the series to not have such a bad rap. And you know, if it doesn't end up that way, y'all don't come for me. I don't know. It wasn't my fault. I will say that I really do love Takemichi. I think that he's a really misunderstood character, and I feel like people don't see his development because, like I said, I'm attached to the series, so in my like I need to consume more, I went back to rewatch the anime and I was like, oh my god, he annoys me so bad, but he doesn't annoy me in the future because, like, you know, I know how he becomes, and he definitely goes into his own. And second off, people act like when you turn 26 you're gonna reach peak maturity, okay? I'm 22, I'm 4 years younger than him, and I'm still crying at every little inconvenience in my life, okay? I feel him. I was there. So I don't think that I'm expecting peak maturity from him. Third off, he's emotionally stunted. You're telling me the highlight of his life was middle school? And then when we go to middle school, we see how miserable he was? That was his highlight of his life. Everything else was worse than that, and that was already bad. So do you think that he emotionally grew from 13 on? No. He's emotionally stunted, and that's the point of the series. The point of the series is that he's a loser. That's what makes it. If he was cool, then he wouldn't care. He wouldn't have to go back because he'd have a girlfriend. Don't you see? If he was cool, then the series wouldn't have happened. But yeah, I do think the series is great. I think it's a really interesting mix of like action and drama, and I love the characters, and I love the hints of romance. Like Hina, his girlfriend, I love her. She deserves the world. I love Mikey. That is my son. I love Mikey. For me personally, I feel like if you're coming just for like some good combat, like back-to-back combat, I would think that this is not the series for you. I feel like the battles are better when they're telling a story alongside them. For example, I think the Black Dragons arc is my favorite arc because of the way the story's being told alongside the battle. And my favorite characters are Takemichi. He's not my favorite, but Takemichi, Mitsuya, Chifuyu. I'd say Mitsuya and Chifuyu are my favorites. Hina, Mikey to an extent when you don't consider some of the things, and Senju, who's a relatively recent character, and she's another thing that I feel like is going to be expanded on later. I don't think that she's just going to, I don't think her story ends where people think it ends, so yeah. And I don't think I need to say it after all the other words I said, but I will be collecting the physicals for this release. It comes out at the end of July. I already have the first one pre-ordered. I'm gonna try to see if I can get the Barnes & Noble exclusive cover because I got into it too late to pre-order that one. I'm gonna see if I can try to get it. And I'll just be collecting it, and I'll probably be rereading it as the physicals come out so I can pretend to be like the people who are reading it for the first time. So expect me to talk about it when I read those physical versions too. I love Tokyo Revengers. The next series, and I believe the last series I completed in the last month, was Death Note. I know you may be thinking like, what do you mean you just completed Death Note for the first time in 2022? Like, it's a classic. My explanation is that I watched the anime and then I bought the manga and then I fell out of manga and then I got back into it and I decided I wanted to read it. Because I kind of forgot the anime. Like, I feel like Death Note does not have reread ability until you forget the details. So I had forgotten the details and I reread it and I was so impressed and it was great. People are always like, oh, like I would love to read or consume Death Note again without consume it for the first time again. And like, when you have a goldfish brain, you can consume anything for the first time again. You just need to give it a couple years. So that's exactly what I did, and I read Death Note and it was amazing. I'm sure most people already know the premise of Death Note, but for the sake of like consistency with the other things I've said, I'm just gonna quickly explain. Basically, our boy Light, he comes across a book called the Death Note where if you write the name of somebody and you visualize their face in your head, you can kill them. And there's a lot of stipulations to the book with like choosing how they die, when they die, and things like that, and other rules pertaining to the book. And Light uses those basically to try to pass a new world order where he is passing judgment on criminals and other just bad people in society. And obviously that's not gonna fly, so there are leagues of justice that try to thwart his plans, such as like the FBI, the CIA, the Japanese police force, and a rogue detective named L, who pairs up with the Japanese detective force to bring Light down. And it's basically a battle of justice and a battle of ideals. And yeah, the plot does become like kind of convoluted with all these like crazy schemes that Light and L both come up with to like fight against one another. And it just blows my mind how deep Light thinks about the possibilities and how deep L like comes up with, like, narrows down the potential suspects. I think that it's just really an amazing read. But I will say that it's a very, very wordy series. Like, the pages, it's like a novel. So if you're not one for reading, like if you like manga because there's not a lot of words, I don't really recommend Death Note. But I think that the Death Note manga is better than the anime, mostly because of the second half. A lot of people complain about the second half of the anime, but I feel like the manga covers it in a way more effective way than the anime. I feel like the anime rushed it a little bit. I think one of the biggest reasons why I never declare Death Note as like a personal favorite series of mine is because like I don't have any personal attachment to the characters. Like I just listed off half of the cast for Tokyo Revengers as them being like my favorite characters. I don't really have a favorite character in Death Note, but I think on this current reread I've decided that Ryuk is my favorite character. Mostly because I feel like he represents the audience in some way. Like, he drops, like, he's the Shinigami, so he drops his Death Note down into the human world for entertainment. He follows Light around and, like, you know, watches what happens between him and L because he's bored and it's entertaining. And at the end of the day, I'm reading Death Note for entertainment, so I just think it's funny to see his reactions to things, because those are like kind of like the audience's reaction to things. And I like how he plays no sides in the battle. He only tells Light things that personally benefit him, and he keeps most things just to himself. And I find that really entertaining. And to answer the burning question that surrounds the series that everyone wants to know, like, do I like L or Light more? And honestly, I have to say that I like Light more. I feel like that is such a taboo thing to think. Everyone loves L, like, everyone loves L. People loved L before, but I just feel like every time I get on social media, people just love L even more. But Light has always been, like, my favorite between the two. Mostly because I think it's because we follow his side of the story more, so we get to see more dimension to the thoughts that he has, and I find them really interesting. I'm also a sucker for the, like, star student, very sociable, handsome guy who's also a serial killer. I don't know. I know it's like a very played out trope, but I really enjoy it in this series specifically. So, and I also love his little nepotism moment with the police force and how he uses that to his advantage with, like, his plans with Kira. He's great. He's entertaining. I will say that I don't agree with him. Like, I don't agree with his views, but I just find him more interesting. And also, I don't condone the mistreatment of women, but, like, the way he's so slimy towards the end, he's so slimy, and I just find it so funny how literally everything in his life he uses to the advantage of passing his new world order. It's crazy. It's so entertaining. Death Note is so entertaining. If you are in, I feel like you can enjoy Death Note whether you are in it for, like, the philosophical commentary on justice and who has divine judgment and things like that, or you can just watch it for pure entertainment value. I feel like I fit on the latter camp. Light entertains me. I'm like Ryuk. Me and him, the same. I'll talk about, like, spoilers now, because, you know, but I feel like a lot of people have consumed this story, so I don't feel too bad about talking deeply about spoilers, but I will tag it regardless. But I will say, when I first watched the anime, I really wanted Light to live to see his new world order, because he was, like, a lot of people in society were already expressing their agreement with Kira, and I wanted to see him live out and see what happens with it. But I do see that him living would undermine the story's message, because if he won, then that would mean that, like, his method was correct, and that is not what the story wants to present. So I totally understand why he died, and now that I'm older, I kind of agree that he definitely deserved to die. And I will say, I really enjoy how Ryuk is the one that writes his name in the book. I know that he says at the beginning that, like, Ryuk is going to be the one that writes in Light's name in the book, but I think it's funny how Light, in his, like, desire to, like, get out of the situation, he's like, oh, Ryuk, write these guys' names, and Ryuk said, nah, I'm writing your name. He's about his bag only, because if he were to have written somebody else's name in that situation, he probably would have died, because it would have been extending Light's life. So that's a little detail about that ending scene that I found really interesting, and I feel like in the anime you don't get enough time to think about it. Actually, I don't think the anime ends quite the same. Also, I know a lot of people really dislike the part at, like, the second half of the series when when L dies and Nier and Mello take over, but I actually really liked it this time around. I liked the change in pace with, like, instead of it being L versus Light, it was like Nier versus Mello, but at the same time Nier and Mello were going against Light at the same time. And I think that, like Nier and Mello not completely getting along was an interesting twist. So I liked that. I also really like Mello as a character. I don't remember him much from the anime. Is he even in the anime? I don't know. probably. I wouldn't see why he wouldn't be in anime. And I also don't think, I think that Light deserved, some of them, the decisions he was making towards the end were very bold. Like when he started dating Homegirl, I don't remember her name, but when he started dating Homegirl as an attempt to talk to the guy he gave the book to, I was like, that was dumb. That wasn't an intelligent play. Your team is already like suspecting you, and you're just making yourself more suspicious, and it's just gonna blow up in your face. And it did blow up in your face. But I also understand that he had no other option to get into contact with the new Kita. But yeah, I think that's everything I have to say about Death Note. So I'm gonna cut myself off there because I do have a lot of thoughts about it. So if you ever want to talk about it, let me know. But I'm not gonna make a new video about it. I feel like most things to say about the series have been said by now. It's been what, like 20 years at this point, I feel. So no need for extra commentary, I don't think. So now we can get into my in progress series. So the first one that we have on the list is Shugo Chara. I was actually supposed to like read more than I did. I read 4 volumes out of 12. I'm not sure what that is in chapters, but yeah. When I went home for my little break, I was on a mission to read the series that I wanted to like sell, and Death Note and Shugo Chara were both on the list, but Shugo Chara was supposed to be above Death Note, but I was more intrigued by Death Note, and I finished Death Note. I did not get the chance to finish Shugo Chara, so that's why it is in the in progress section. This is a magical girl shoujo series following our lead girl Amu. She is like a tough girl and like dresses kind of punk, but on the inside she really wants to be girly and sweet and cute, but she's not able to be that because she's already put on this facade of being a tough girl. She wakes up one day and she has laid 3 eggs, and the eggs hatch into little guardian characters, which are the like personification of your true self, and she ends up meeting the like elite school club. I forget what they're called, but they're like, I think they're called the Guardians, but each of them also have guardian characters, and they have to use their guardian character super magical powers to fight against X eggs, which are basically when you have so much self-doubt your egg turns into an X. So the guardians like take care of that, but there's actually an evil organization trying to exploit people's X eggs for their own gain, and that is the premise of the story. I will say that this magical girl series has a more like broad or like I don't know, like more detailed plot line than most of the series of this genre, so I do applaud that. But I will say that Ikuto is a weirdo, and like I always thought he was a weirdo when I was a kid, but now that I'm older, he is a big ass weirdo. The whole cast is in elementary school, and Ikuto is in high school, and he's trying to get with Amu and does weird things with her, and that is actually disgusting. I have to headcanon the characters as in middle school for me to like be able to read the series and be like, yeah, this is so much fun, I can like deal with the series as a 22-year-old. But Ikuto makes it really hard, because how am I supposed to, like, even if I headcanon them as middle school, he's still weirdo for going at a middle schooler. There's no way to make the series digestible. Even as like a kid, I always shipped her with Tadase, who's like the prince guy. Now that I'm rereading, I kind of like her with Nagihiko, but at the end of the day, they're all kids. They're literally in elementary school, and at least the people that I liked her with were also in elementary school. And I'm pretty sure the manga like focuses in more on Ikuto. I think the anime ends off with like more open-ended in terms of her romance, but I think the manga ends with her getting with him, and that I don't like. Like I said, I did read it to decide whether I wanted to unhaul it or not. I ultimately decided to keep it because I do have like, I really enjoyed it as a kid, but I don't think I'll collect anymore, because if she really does get with him towards the end, I only have up to volumes 8, and if she really does get with him at the end, like I really don't even want to have that on the shelf, because that makes me angry. But I don't know, it's okay. I won't be reading anymore. Like, I liked it when I read the 4 volumes, but I don't think I'm going to be reading scans to keep up with it, so I won't be talking about it again until maybe I go home and decide to read more. But that's my little analysis on Shugo Kara. I don't know if I recommend it. Actually, you know what? I do recommend it. I think if you can close your eyes for the certain scenes with her and him, the rest of the story is really fun. And I like the idea of, like, oh, unlocking your true self with little characters. I think that's cool. I just wish they didn't put her with a high schooler, especially it's supposed to be a series for kids. I don't think kids should be seeing that. The last series that is in progress is Fruits Basket, and it is actually the only series that I have the manga for with me right now, because everything else is on my shelf at home. And the funny part is that I didn't read that much of this one. I read all of the first omnibus, and then I think I read like maybe 1 or 2 chapters of this one. I've read 13 chapters of Fruits Basket so far, and I love it. I've already said Fruits Basket's one of my favorites. I watched the manga. I watched the anime, so I'm just rereading the manga. Like I said, I give myself enough time to forget the series, and then I consume the series again and pretend like it's brand new. And I think that this is like a classic, and everyone should give it a try regardless of what your tastes are. A quick synopsis. We follow Toru. Who's this girl? Yay, Toru. We love Toru. She is a new orphan. Like, her mom died relatively recent to the beginning of the story, and long story short, she ends up living in a tent, and she gets recruited back into the Soma's house, which are like these guys. This one's Yuki and this one's Kyo. She gets recruited into their house to live with them, because obviously you're not going to let some girl live in a tent outside. And she ends up discovering their secret, which is that every member of the family, well, not every member, but 13 members of the family are possessed by the Chinese zodiac. So if they are hugged by the opposite gender, or just in a general state of weakness, they will turn into their respective animals. And I feel like the premise sounds quite childish, but it gets really deep and really emotional. There's a lot of things that you don't think about that will cause harm to an individual for having those traits. And yeah, the manga is very fleshed out. You get to hear about all the members of the zodiac and all their stories, and I find that really interesting. And so far, I kind of think I like the manga more than the anime. Not like by a wide margin, but I just think that with the manga, I'm able to like absorb the emotional scenes at my own rate, rather than the anime deciding what rate I should be processing the emotional scenes. Like, even in the first volume, I was already like tears. I'm so sad. They know how to pull at the heartstrings, and it's not like a depressing sad, it's like a hopeful sad, if that makes sense. Like, I just think Tori works so hard and is trying really hard to like get to know all the characters, and everyone just has a really sad story, and they still are able to be happy, you know? As of right now, during my rereading of the series, I think Yuki is my favorite boy. When I first watched the anime as a kid, Yuki was my favorite boy. At least I think he was. I don't really remember, it was a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure he was my favorite. And then on my rewatch, like on the reboot watch, I decided Kyo was my favorite boy. But now that I'm rereading, I think Yuki's my favorite boy again. I think that his character in the manga has a little bit more edge to it than the anime. I feel like in the anime he's more like the princely type, but I think he has a little more edge in this, and I like that. I like his dimension, and I'm really excited to read his arc, because I really did enjoy his arc. So I know I have a lot of ways to go before I learn more about Yuki, but I'm enjoying it so far, and I can't wait to keep reading. So the last section of today's video, we'll be talking about things I want to read. I say things, but there's one thing, and that is Chainsaw Man, okay? I've heard obviously great things about Chainsaw Man. Everyone talks about it, everyone loves it, especially the anime's coming out, so everyone's getting super hyped about it. And I like the aesthetic of The manga, I see the covers when I go to Barnes & Noble. I respectfully flip through the pages of some of the volumes, and like I really think that I would really enjoy the series. And the one thing that really tuned me in to wanting to check out Chainsaw Man is actually the one shot that recently came out with, made by the same mangaka, called Goodbye Eddie. Goodbye Eddie was so good. I don't have enough to, I can't formulate my words in a way that is effective to explain why I thought it was such an excellent piece of media, but I think that the one shot was really good, and a lot of people were saying, oh yeah, classic Fujimoto with the storytelling. And if that's how he tells stories, then I need to read like the most popular series that he has, which is Chainsaw Man. And I especially need to get into it before the anime comes out, because I want to be one of those cool kids that read the manga and knows what's happening before the anime comes out. The only thing that holds me back is like the violence. I'm not good with a lot of gore and a lot of violence, so I'm not sure. But like, there are series that I have consumed that are quite gory, like, I don't know, Parasite and Tokyo Ghoul, like, are those considered, would you say that Chainsaw Man is on the same level of gore as those, or more or less? Let me know, because I really want to get into it, but I'm scared. I'll probably one day go to Barnes & Noble and just cheekily read the first volume while I'm there to decide whether I want to give them my money or not. But Chainsaw Man looks really good, and I'm really excited for the anime, and I heard there's like going to be a part 2. So is there going to be like part 2, 3, 4, or is it just like 2? Because I don't like collecting long series. I originally was like, yeah, Chainsaw Man's only like 11 volumes, but if there's going to be a part 2, I don't know. That is going to be the end of this month's manga reading log. I feel like it was quite long because I had a few weeks off of school between the last clip and this one, so yeah, I can't promise that the next one will have this many series to talk about, or at least like this many completed series to talk about, but I hope you enjoyed nonetheless, and leave a comment if you have any recommendations based on the things I talked about, because I talked about some good heavy hitters for me, so I would love to check out series that you think I would enjoy based on that. I've been really enjoying manga lately, and I love sharing this hobby, so I hope you all enjoy, and thank you so much for watching.